Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Hare Krishna. I'm Rajarsi Dasa. Welcome to continuing presentation of spiritual discount. Yes, we're continuing to examine lessons from the Srimad Bhagavatam on the history of the sons of Kuvera being cursed by Narad Muni. We're looking at the special month of Kartik that is very dear to Lord Krishna, and how by observing this auspicious month one can actually become purified. Let us look at some of the main points that we have covered in this history so far. We have discussed that throughout the month of Kartik, morning and evening prayers called Damodarashtaka from the Padma Puran is chanted while lamps are offered to the Supreme Lord Krishna in his form as Damodara, the form where he is bound with ropes by his mother Yashoda. We also looked at the history of how the two persons, Manigriva and Nalakuvara, were cursed to stand as trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. Now, we were reading from Bhagavad about Narad Muni, the great saintly person, how he came upon these two personalities, the two sons of Kuvera, Manigriva and Nalakuvara, because they were proud of their opulence and they had the good fortune of associating with Lord Shiva, then intoxicated. They were wandering about in the Mandakini Ganges with naked women. They were themselves naked with naked women, enjoying themselves. So when Narad came on the scene, the women, they covered their bodies out of respect for Narad. But Manigriva and Nalakuvara, they were indifferent to the saintly person's presence, and Narad thought, these persons should be taught a lesson. And then Narad went on about how people are proud and how pride is very, very dangerous. You have wealth and so on. You're very proud of that. A very important point also is that how people misuse tirthas or holy places that are meant for purification. And people may use the tirthas or holy places for sense gratification rather than purification. This is an example of these persons going to the Ganges just for sense gratification rather than purification. Therefore, 5,000 years ago, when Lord Krishna was present on the earth planet, he gave invaluable instructions about human perfection. Once there was an eclipse and people came to Kurukshetra from all over for this occasion. Now generally on the occasion of an eclipse they would come to a holy place, they'll go about taking a bath and so on. However, Krishna was asked to give a speech there in the presence of many people assembled. And Krishna said, Yat tirtha buddhi salilela karhichit janeshu abhigeshu sa eva gokharaha. If a person just comes to a holy place just to take a bath or just to go sightseeing, as people is common today for their pride and prestige, materialistic people would go to holy places just to say, yeah, I've been to this place, I've taken bath in the Ganges, and so on. So Krishna's point is that if you come to a holy place, but you don't hear from saintly persons, then sa eva go karaha. Go means cow and kara means ass, donkey. Now these creatures, these animals, they come to the holy place also, they come to the Ganges, but just to take a drink. And that's it. If a human being goes to a holy place, just sightseeing, just to take a dip, but he doesn't hear from the saintly persons, the tasmad gurum prapadyeta jigyasur shreya uttamam, that the purpose of human life is to surrender to the lotus feet of a master, spiritual master, who can teach you shreya uttamam, the ultimate goal, which is to get out of the cycle of birth and death, to go back home to the eternal world, the kingdom of God. If you don't hear from the saintly persons, you won't get that clear vision, you won't get the inspiration to practice day-to-day spirituality. Therefore, in Bhagavad also, this has been condemned by the Emperor Parikshit 5,000 years ago. The Emperor was cursed to die in 7 days. And he was asking for spiritual processes. So Shukadeva Goswami, he threw out something that if people are sinful, then they should adopt some means for purification. So Maharaj Parikshit, the emperor, he was very intelligent. He said, this sinning and atoning, you perform your sinful acts and you come to church on Sunday and you say, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. But then you go back and you do it again. Or someone is fasting for some prayers. He's having some puja and he observes some fast. But then after the puja is finished, he goes back to his old ways again. So the emperor said, Kvachin nivartate bhadrat, kvachit charati tat punaha. Prayaschitam atopartam manye kunjara shauchavat. He said, I consider, manye, I think, that this process of indulging in sinful activities, and you go and you do a little religious thing, you do some atonement for that, but then you go back to it again. He says, manye kunjara shauchavat. I consider this to be like the bathing of an elephant. Elephant goes and take a bath into the river, but then he comes out and rolls on the sand again. And so what is the use of that taking a bath? So what is the use of indulging in sinful activities and you engage in some religious process or some atonement, but then you go back to it again? Of course, he uses decent language. He says kunjara shauchavat, bathing of an elephant. We call it hogwash. You're trying to get a hog clean. You're trying to purify a hog, right? What would you use? Detergent and so on. Bathe a hog clean, but it will go back to the mess again. So until and unless you actually hear from a powerful, saintly person, which Shukadeva Goswami agreed with the emperor, he said, yes. Kechit kevalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayana agamdunvanti karshnina niharam iva bhaskaraha. He says, yes, kechit kevalaya bhaktya, a rare person who has adopted the process of unalloyed bhakti, unalloyed devotion, not mixed, that you just take up some religious activities just because you want to enjoy life in this world, or you want things to go good, or you want to become free from some sin. No. Unalloyed bhakti, unalloyed devotion means to know God and to just serve Him, to just love Him and serve Him for His sake. Not personally motivated, I want this and I want that. So we look at saintly persons going to holy places for purification, for elevation, for going back to God, becoming free from the cycle of birth and death. And materialistic persons, on the other hand, they go to a holy place just for sense gratification. So this is the case of Manigreva and Nalakuvara, the two sons of Kuvera. So Narad thought these persons should be rectified. They should be taught a proper lesson. So Narad, he says, atheistic fools and rascals who are very much proud of wealth fail to see things as they are. Therefore, returning them to poverty is the proper ointment for their eyes, so they may see things as they are. At least, a poverty-stricken man can realize how painful poverty is, and therefore he will not want others to be in a painful condition like his own. So Narad is considering what he should do with these persons. They're so proud of their wealth. They're so much absorbed in sense gratification. So he says the right ointment for their eyes, that they'll see things properly, is to return them back to poverty. Because the poor man, he is miserable and he doesn't wish anyone to see him in that condition or to be in that condition like him. There's a saying, with money you can't go to heaven, or without it you could see hell. Yes, so the poor man, he is in a miserable condition. And of course, Krishna says in the Gita, there are 4 types of persons, pious persons, who turn to him. Yes. And one of these pious persons, they are seeking some wealth. But because they're pious, they don't just go working hard like Mudas and think that, yes, I'll work hard and become rich by myself. No, the poverty-stricken person, he turns to God because he knows God is all powerful. He's the supreme being. So a classic example of this from Bhagavad is the great devotee Dhruva. Yes, the little boy Dhruva. He is an example of someone who adopted the process of devotion, but with great determination. He had some material desires. But he said bhakti is so powerful that akama sarvakamo va moksha kama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogina yajeta purusham param. That whether you are akam, without desires, or sarvakam, you're full of desires, or mokshakam, you want to be liberated, tivrena bhakti yogina, with great force, you should adopt this practice of bhakti to Bhagavan, or devotion to God. So this Dhruva, when he engaged in intense devotion to the Lord appeared before him and said, okay, I'll give you a great kingdom. But then Dhruva, he apologized. He said, my Lord, I started this process of praying, looking for a kingdom, but that was just like seeking broken pieces of glass. But now that I am seeing you, I have found a valuable jewel, a great gem. Swamin kritartosmi varam nayache. My Lord, I don't want any such thing. So this is the result of bhakti. When you come in contact with God, He's the all-attractive, He's the all-powerful, He's the supreme being. So when you actually come in contact with Him, you become fully contented, fully satisfied. That's the result of knowing God. And then you don't want anything again in this world. Because Krishna says, Dukha yonaya evati. This material sense gratification simply causes reaction and misery. It binds you up. Every action produces a reaction, or you indulge in sinful activity, and the desire, the lust increases more and more. You take intoxication. Toxic means poison. It's destroying your existence, but you become more and more addicted to it. You become a slave of the senses. So Narad Muni, he's considering how to punish these persons. So when we're getting some punishment from the Lord, we shouldn't think, oh, this God, they say he's good, he's powerful, and here he's making us miserable. But he has a purpose. Get the reaction to your sinful activities and suffer, so you will wake up and you won't want to do it again. Otherwise you're called pramata, mad. So Lord Rishabhadev says, Nunam pramata kurute vikarma. That a person who is mad, he doesn't consider, I engage in sinful activities in my previous life. It has resulted in a temporary miserable body. I'm suffering now. Why should I again go and indulge in the same sinful activities and have to suffer again? He says, Nasadhu manya. This is not good. This is madman business. You put your hand in the fire, you get burned, you pull it out, you say it's paining, but you're putting it back again. This is insanity. We don't want to toe this path. So Narad is considering how to punish these persons very proud of their wealth. So Narad continues with the point about returning them, cursing them, returning them to poverty. He said a poverty-stricken man must automatically undergo austerities and penances because he does not have the wealth to possess anything. Thus his false prestige is vanquished. Always in need of food, shelter, and clothing, he must be satisfied with what is obtained by the mercy of providence. Undergoing such compulsory austerities is good for him because this purifies him and completely frees him from false ego. So the poverty-stricken man, he may be in a situation and he may become dependent on God. But the proud person, Kunti Devi said, my Lord, they cannot call out to you with sincere feelings. They think, I'm all right. Everything's okay with me. So Narad described this poverty-stricken person, always hungry, longing for sufficient food. A poverty-stricken man gradually becomes weaker and weaker, having no extra potency. His senses are automatically pacified. A poverty-stricken man, therefore, is unable to perform harmful, envious activities. In other words, such a man automatically gains the results of the austerities and penances adopted voluntarily by saintly persons. So, it is said generally in this age, right, people, they don't eat to live, they live to eat. They want to eat in such a luxurious way. Yes. They don't realize that human life is meant for self-realization and not sense gratification. People today, they've got the wrong spirit just to enjoy. Krishna called it a demoniac mentality. He says the demoniac thing to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of life. Whereas the human form is meant to understand this world is a miserable place. Disease, old age, and death will kick us out of everything that we try to secure to enjoy. So Narad Muni is speaking about this poverty, the benefit of they losing this opulence that they're proud of. Saintly persons may freely associate with those who are poverty-stricken, but not with those who are rich. A poverty-stricken man, by association with saintly persons, very soon becomes uninterested in material desires, and the dirty things within the core of his heart are cleansed away. So then Narad Muni, he says, saintly persons, sadhus, think of Krishna 24 hours a day. They have no other interest. Why should people neglect the association of such exalted spiritual personalities and try to associate with materialists, taking shelter of non-devotees, most of whom are proud and rich? So Narada is saying, Mahat Sevam, Dwaram Hurvi Muktes, that by associating with Mahatmas, great souls, the door to liberation is wide open. So why should a person be so concerned? Kripana Durjana, just for a fraction of momentary flickering happiness, you serve wicked and miserly men of this world. Kamala dala jala jivana talamala. This jivan, this life, is tottering like a drop of water on a lotus. At any moment it will fall off. This life will be finished at any moment. So the great Chanakya Pandit, he says, Tyaja Durjana Sangsargam Bhaja Sadhu Samagamam. You give up the company of Durjana, the wicked. You give up their company. And Bhaja Sadhu Samagamam. You take the company of saintly persons. Kuru Punya, you perform good deeds. That is the value of the human form of life. So Narad said, therefore, since these two persons, drunk with the liquor named Varuni or Madhvi, and unable to control their senses, have been blinded by the pride of celestial opulence and have become attached to women, I shall relieve them of their false prestige. These two young men, Nalakuvar and Manigriva, are by fortune they are by fortune the sons of the great demigod Kuvera, but because of false prestige and madness after drinking liquor, they are so fallen that they are naked but cannot understand that they are. Therefore, because they are living like trees, for trees are naked but are not conscious, these two young men should receive the bodies of trees. This will be proper punishment. Nonetheless, after they become trees and until they are released, by my mercy, they will have remembrance of their past sinful activities. Moreover, by my special favor, after the expiry of 100 years of the measurement of the Devatas, they will be able to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudev face to face and thus revive their real position as devotees. Now just see the curse of the saintly person Narad. It is actually a benediction. These persons are sinful, just absorbed in sense gratification. But just see, to come in contact with a great soul Narad. He's cursing them to become trees and to be conscious of their sinful behavior. But he's benedicting them that they would be able to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Shukadev Goswami continued, having thus spoken, the great saint Devarshi Narad returned to his ashram known as Narayana Ashram, and Nalakuvar and Manigriva became twin Arjuna trees. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, to fulfill the truthfulness of the words of the greatest devotee Narad, slowly went to that spot where the twin Arjuna trees were standing. Although these two young men are the sons of the very rich Kuvera, and I have nothing to do with them, Devarshi Narad is my very dear and affectionate devotee, and therefore, because he wanted me to come face to face with them, I must do so for their deliverance. Having thus spoken, Krishna soon entered between the two Arjuna trees, and thus the big mortar to which he was bound turned crosswise and stuck between them. By dragging behind him with great force the wooden mortar tied to his belly, the boy Krishna uprooted the two trees. By the great strength of the Supreme Person, the two trees with their trunks, leaves and branches trembled severely and fell to the ground with a great crash. Now it's a very wonderful place in Gokula where Krishna pulled down these two trees. You can go to that very wonderful spot in Gokula there. Of course, this pastime in Vrindavan is very, very amazing, very wonderful. So we're saying in this month of Kartik that we can meditate on the lessons taught in Srimad Bhagavatam, how sinful persons of this world, they are punished for misbehavior, but at the same time the Lord is all auspicious, He is all merciful, so He arranges that His powerful pure devotees will give mercy to saintly persons. So it is said in the world, tapyante loka tapina, that what is there? Great saintly persons, they almost always undergo great difficulty for the deliverance of souls of this world. Therefore, it is very auspicious this month of Kartik to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, hear and chant the wonderful prayers called Damodarashtaka, 8 prayers from the Padma Puran, glorifying Lord Krishna in his form as Damodara, and also offering lamps to the Lord in this beautiful form. So I request everyone to please take advantage of Srimad Bhagavatam and this message. I'm Rajarsi Dasa saying Hare Krishna, and do join us again next week for another presentation. Hare Krishna.